speaking of college football, we are now joined by Fox Sports college football writer R.J. Young, who recently released his ultimate CFB 138 rankings, a preseason ranking of every single college football team in FBS. You see that. That is 138 teams. Check where your team ranks at foxsports.com or the Fox Sports app. RJ, thank you so much for the time and welcome. There's a lot of things we can do here, and we can jump into it, but I want to actually zoom all the way out. Tell me the process of ranking 138 teams. What goes into it?
Careful planning and a lot of thought. But at the top of the list, strength of schedule or the rate of perceived exertion, right? Big Ten teams, SEC teams. What do you return? And as far as, is your head coach back? Are your coordinators back? Is your starting quarterback back? How'd you do in the transfer portal? How did you do in 2026 recruiting this year? How was your administration lineup, right? Your president to your athletic department, all the way down to your head coach to your players. And then household names and star players. How many of those do you have? And how many of those will we need to introduce to folks as we get started to play football this Saturday?
All right, well, so you've got Indiana at number 1 on your preseason rankings, and based on a lot of what you just said, that certainly makes sense. Are you picking the Hoosiers, though, to repeat?
I'm not picking them to repeat, but I'm going to give them as much of a chance to do it as UGA did in 2022.
Oh, wow.
In large part because Curt Cignetti has earned that, right? And in giving him that number 1 spot, I expect him to retain it up until October 17th when they got to play the Buckeyes.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? There's the talent, and then there's the coaching. And it feels like in Indiana right now, how much of a weight am I supposed to give to? You probably have the best coach in the sport by a decent amount. Like, would you agree with that? Like, it seems like you're maybe heavily weighing his impact as a coach.
I am, as it pertains to Indiana. I believe that coaches drive our sport, in a sport that has basically been bathed in chaos.
Right.
Coaches have been the through line, and coaches can layer over their attitude, their personalities of their programs. And his personality is winning. That's what they do. We learned this in 2024. We learned it again in 2025. I expect that they will march to the beat that is Curt Cignetti, and that is winning at a high level.
I want to get right back to where we left off here and talk some Notre Dame football. You seem to be a little lower than most on Notre Dame, ranking them 6th, but they are tied for the best odds to win the national title, and their quarterback, C.J. Carr, has the best odds to win the Heisman Trophy. So what do you see as potentially stopping the Fighting Irish this season?
I just don't know about their running back room in Aeneas Williams. That's the guy that we think is going to be the starting tailback for the Fighting Irish, and I think many people forgot that they lost not 1 but 2 first-round tailbacks at that position last year, and not just Jeremiah Love, but Jadarian Price. It's a team that predicates its success on running the football, and that's why its defense was so dominant last year. If Aeneas Williams turns out to be another Jeremiah Love, then absolutely, let's have a conversation about them playing for a national championship. I'm just not ready to put them there just yet.
Yeah, and it's not like 6th is very disrespectful. Yeah, Seattle definitely hoping that Price is going to make a huge impact in the NFL. I want to get back to your ranking in the 138 and the tremendous work you put in, and people should check out the 1 through 138 ranking at foxsports.com. But the biggest news today in college football and yesterday is that we got players going from the NFL to LSU, and then the Big Ten comes in and is like, nah, we're not going to do that in our conference. But there's the 5-at-5 eligibility thing. It could just be a 1-year loophole. What do you make of the state of college sports as it relates to this rule that the Big Ten is trying to implement here?
I applaud the Big Ten for getting out in front of this and for all 18 members voting unanimously to put this rule into place. That seems very common sense, right? You go through the NFL draft process. You're not allowed to return to college no matter what the circumstances are. It's unfair to your roster. At LSU, they've had to cut some players to make room for some of these players, like Xavier Harris coming from the Saints and Daquan Wright coming from Cleveland. However, I also understand a player wanting to get another year of eligibility because you can get paid to play on a team that can play for a national championship as opposed to playing on a team where you might make the practice squad. I don't like it. I don't think it's fair, but it comes down to, can you get a judge that supports your opinion?
I think that makes total sense, that I would never blame the players for this. And I know we have not invented time travel yet to go back in time, but it seems interesting to me that they couldn't see around the corner on this, and they couldn't see the issues into the future of, we're not going to let the players profit off it, their name, image, and likeness. We're not going to pay the players. We're not going to cut them in on the revenue for years and years and years. And then the floodgates open, and all of these problems exist. So I have talked about like there being a leadership void of being able to anticipate some of these issues into the future, and it's the tail wagging the dog situation. Like, it feels like college football and college sports right now are constantly playing catch up. Would you agree with that characterization?
I do. I also agree that it is mostly leaderless, but I'm also going to point to leaders having to do what is in the best interest of their programs and their universities. Like, this is what Lane Kiffin believes. It is in my best interest and the interest of LSU for me to recruit these players and put them on my team because my job is to win championships. As long as what I'm doing passes muster for my bosses, then I'm going to do it. Now, can we get adults to stand up and say this isn't right and we're not going to do it? Sure. But generally, it costs you to stand on your principles rather than try to do what's in the best interest of your program. I don't see a solution for this in the short term or the long term. I think it is being uncomfortable for a very long time and finding some comfort in that. Take it day to day, take it game to game, and then let's see. Because we're going to start playing ball here pretty quickly.
Yeah, the games do have a tendency to push these stories to the back of our minds. So let's get back to the games and the teams and the players. Arch Manning may be the most polarizing player in college football. They're one of the favorites for the national title. He's the second favorite for the Heisman. I feel like everybody that I hear on this is like, yup, he's the next great Manning, or we're only talking about him because he is a Manning. Where do you come out on Arch?
Fear that man. He's very good.
I feel the same way. I feel the
He's
same way.
very good. He's extremely good. He's 6'4", so you know he has size. He's got wheels. He's got a super soaker water cannon that he calls an arm that is accurate. And he played better in the second half of last year than he did in the first half. But there are two things that need to be known. One is he did that last year because it became apparent to him and Steve Sarkisian, okay, I got to do it myself. Because we went into overtime against Mississippi State. We went in overtime against Kentucky. I need to be able to take over the game. Last year, he also did not have a 1,000-yard tailback. That's the first time that Steve Sarkisian hasn't had one of those at Texas. He's getting a run game this year with Raleek Brown and Hollywood Smothers. And he has learned, okay, when I got to go get us a bucket, I can go get us a bucket. We got to get 6, I can go do that. I'm excited to see that player play.
Yeah, me too. Inevitable is a bit strong, but I will be shocked if he doesn't cement himself at the top of all draft boards coming up at the end of this season. But all right, I was reading some of your stuff before the show, and you had said that we are in line for potentially the most competitive college football season upcoming, that it'll be tougher to win this title and it's going to continue to get tougher. And I thought it was a very compelling case that you laid out. Could you maybe explain it to the audience and why in particular you think it is going to be so competitive now and going forward in college football?
The labor force has never been more skilled. Like, college football, as a rule, is unskilled labor. They've been playing 4 years in most cases, right? 3 years if you're very good. Now you have players that are entering the workforce earlier, say Jeremiah Smith, who was precocious at 17 years old, playing right away, and players that want to stay longer because they understand the experience that they have gained, and their coaches understand the experience that they have gained is going to make this football team that much better. Then you are paying for your roster. So can you raise enough money to put a competitive roster on the field? We've never seen more movement in the sport among players. So it's flattening the talent advantage that places like Alabama or Georgia used to have. And finally, we are really taking a hard look at your schedule, and we're really making it difficult for anybody outside the Big Ten or the SEC to play for national championships because we value those conferences at such a higher rate. Does that make sense? No,
I think it does, and this is overly simplistic of just using one data point. But like, if you watched, as most people did, the Indiana-Miami title game, it was like, okay, Indiana has this awesome head coach, program builder, leader, but a lot of NFL style to him. Fernando Mendoza is the number one pick. There's other NFL talent all over. They go undefeated. And then you look at Miami, and I remember that Carson Beck press conference, And some reporter who didn't really understand what was going on in the state of college football, or he was asking a joking question, he was like, so you go into class, title game week, and he's like, I graduated 2 years ago. Like, no classroom. Like, this is professional sports wearing college uniforms. And so I do think it's very clear that the level of play has risen accordingly.
Very much so. I mean, I find it fascinating that Carson Beck will make less as a professional football player in the National Football League than he did his last year playing college football at Miami. So
I guess back to Indiana, at one point they were over 100-1 to win the title. So I'm not going to hold you necessarily to that threshold of a deep, deep, deep sleeper. But if it is true, tougher than ever to win, those teams at the top are not maybe as shoo-in as previous number one polling would indicate in college football. Do you have a dark horse that you're like, yeah, I could legitimately see that somewhat out of nowhere team winning a title this year?
I don't have someone out of nowhere, but I do have a sleeper.
Okay.
And I think we should be paying attention to USC. Very much so. You're returning Jade Mayob at quarterback. You got Lincoln Riley calling the plays. And quiet as it is kept, USC was the number one offense in the Big Ten last year, ahead of Oregon by about 13 yards a game, putting up 465 a game. When they rushed for 130 yards last game, they were undefeated. They've got Wayman Jordan back. They got King Miller. These are two tailbacks that, as a duo, are probably as good as Samaje Perine and Joe Mixon were for Lincoln Riley at Oklahoma. And my favorite part is one of the best offensive play callers in the sport has reunited himself with one of the great defensive play callers of all time in Gary Patterson, who was a head coach of Texas Christian when they played each other in the Big 12. The marriage of those two coordinators, I'm fascinated by. I think that is the best coordinator combo in the sport, and I'm including every other college football team in that calculus. Then there's their schedule. They basically get to play 8 games at home, but they do have 3 really tough games. They got to play Oregon, they got to play Ohio State, they got to play Indiana. What that means for us, though, is if they come through and they win 2 of those 3 games, we're going to know what we need to know about USC. And I'm not going to be the only person telling you this team is really good.
All right, check out RJ's Ultimate CFB 138 rankings. It is a tremendous undertaking on foxsports.com or the Fox Sports app. RJ, thank you for joining me. This was a lot of fun, man. We appreciate you.
Thank you for having me, Danny. I had fun.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get more from the show and to check out clips from other shows on FS1.